Yeah, well, Taoiseach, you're as adept as your second-last predecessor at muddying the waters and losing the essential in a ball of cotton wool when you try to justify the unjustifiable and to equate the IFSC clearinghouse group and its influence with a deputy coming in here and raising some issue belonging to some constituent or some vulnerable group in society. Frankly, it's derisory. Any reading of the minutes of the IFSC clearinghouse group tells you immediately that it's a who's who of the main players in the financial markets in this state, and players further afield as well. The banks and the financial institutions, powerful multinational corporations, and also the legal financial consultancy groups who advise these powerful financial institutions and particularly advise them on persistent and consistent tax avoidance in this state to the detriment of our people. And they have ready access to the most senior representatives of government in the Taoiseach's department and in the Department of Finance. Now, what this means really is that those whose speculation caused the disastrous crash in this state have had and continue to have permanent access to the most powerful institutions in the state to advance their own interests. The IFSC clearinghouse, isn't it clear, is simply an institutionalised, gold-plated lobbying facility for those most powerful private and profit-seeking financial institutions, and gives them unprecedented access where we know that they write legislation. They actually write it and present it, and then it's duly and obediently put into some of the finance acts to provide for their interests. Now, is it any wonder that yourself and Deputy Martin and his colleagues, when they were in government, would come in here and lay down their lives in the trenches that there shouldn't be a cent extra in corporate taxation on these financial institutions? Isn't it clear the hold they have over the right-wing political parties in the government? Taoiseach, will you not agree that this is capitalist corporatism at its most blatant, and that it shows the state under your Fine Gael and Labour domination, as was the case under Fianna Fáil and the Greens before them, as having democracy perverted? Now, lastly, contrast this to the other sectors of society, the unfortunate victims of Priory Hall, who lost their homes due to rogue developers who are entertained by some of the institutions that are prominent in the IFSC clearinghouse group. They had to beat down the walls of government to get talking to you. Or can the unemployed come in and walk into the heart of government buildings, have immediate access, write laws for urgent job creation measures, for example, to ask the questions to show the disparity? I put it to you that, in fact, the way this institution works, it's a distortion of any concept of real democracy and a perversion of any concept of real democracy, and it's indefensible.
I don't share your view at all. The very fact that you can stand up here and be elected to this House properly by the people speaks for itself. That's the democratic wish of the people in your constituency, and you're sent in here to represent them and to articulate your particular views, which I assume they vote for. That's not a perversion of democracy. That's the result of the people's vote. So I don't understand your point of view. Now, you make reference to muddying the waters. Sure, aren't you the fella who was going round with your tweet talking about who are the members of this secret group that was meeting all summer. In response to Deputy Martin's question, I read out the names of your so-called secret group. I hope I make it clear now that therefore does not muddy the waters. And you can take your cotton wool ball that you refer to and you can throw it up against the haystack that you were throwing it up against a number of years ago, but this time it's going to bounce back and might even bite you. Correct. Your memory is good. You do not suffer from amnesia. Now, you make the point. Deputy Adams said that some propositions carry more weight than others. And I was trying to deal, in fairness, with Deputy Adams's point that if a person who might suffer from difficulties with their sight sends in a proposition to the Department of Finance, does it get the same consideration as the leader of a party who would want to raise an issue of sensitivity on a regular basis? The job of government is to reflect these things as fairly as possible. I think, Deputy Higgins, that it's important that where you have the main employers of over 30,000 people, that it's only right and proper that they should be able to engage with government. And I've made no secret of the fact that if it's one job, 10 jobs, 100 jobs, or 1,000 jobs, I'm interested. And business has access to government purely in the sense of talking about opportunities for job creation, for growth in our economy, because that's where the future is for your constituency, for every constituency, and for the country. So I think it's whether it be the local community council, whether it be the local entrepreneur, whether it be the person who's setting up their business, of which there are 1,800 a month now, I think it's important that they be able to articulate their case for improvement in that sphere to government or to members of government. And I make no apology for that, because it's wide open and all recorded where that occurs. Now, I don't accept your business at all of democracy therefore being perverted. We've made it perfectly clear, Deputy Higgins, that the only tax that can be levied on companies here is on income generated here. Ireland, as we know, we took priority during our presidency, and we prioritised files that took action against tax fraud and tax evasion and aggressive tax planning, and there were a number of significant achievements in that particular regard. We do not meet any of the criteria set out by the OECD as being a tax haven, and we abide both by the OECD rules and by the EU rules on harmful tax competition. For example, to avail of our competitive 12.5% rate requires both economic substance and economic presence, and many of the companies demonstrate that in their thousands. We also constructively participate in the international response here. I myself, as the President of the period for our EU, we had a very strong and conclusive discussion at the European Council, where there was a genuine response to dealing with the fact that legislation has not moved as fast as the digital world in this, and it does need a very strong international response. So our tax position of 12.5% has always been a stable cornerstone of our attractiveness as a location for foreign direct investment, and it will continue to be that way. But you are aware yourself of the changes that occur in other jurisdictions where you manufacture something here, sell it in a different jurisdiction, intellectual property may belong somewhere else, and these are all subject to different criteria in those jurisdictions. But we can only tax on what's raised here in Ireland. Now, you went on to mention Priory Hall. This was a scandal. But I don't believe, Deputy Higgins, that every single developer or contractor in the country should be branded in the same way as those who put together a Priory Hall. And it's not just in one instance that negligence or incompetence occurred here, because there were systems failures along the line. Now, Deputy Martin raised an important point about Horizon 2020 and the agri-sector, which has increased in international integrity, where we produce food to the highest standard, grass-based agri-economy, and will go over 10 billion next year. But the construction sector, while there are many very fine buildings, beautiful buildings built in our country, there have been cowboys in there who have brought down the name of Ireland in terms of its competency for construction, and have destroyed the hopes and the lives of thousands of people. Now, I have to deal with the symphysiotomy situation. Why was this not dealt with? Why have we so many other legacies here, where the Magdalens and so many others that were endemic in Ireland's society and not dealt with? And I hope that during the period of the next 2.5 years that we can work on these things. And I just want to say to you, because you mentioned the word, there have been a number of very constructive engagements, Deputy Higgins, in regard to Priory Hall from the Department of the Environment with Minister Hogan and some assistance from my own department. And I hope that we can deal with that matter effectively and quickly. So I don't accept your assertion at all that this is a perversion of democracy. We all live in the same country. We were all sent in here with the same consent, the secret ballot of the people. And this is the People's Forum, and you represent some of those, and you're absolutely entitled to be here and articulate these viewpoints. I disagree with you, fundamentally. I think if you're down there in the IFSC and you see the thousands of people, mostly young people, going to work and coming out of work and contributing to their country in this way, you should be very proud of that fact. Others are envious of Ireland's status and our progress here. And the Clearinghouse Group and the subgroups are looking at that industry and these industries to see how we can improve the situation and have more people in gainful employment with careers and all the rest of it here in Ireland, and not to have to take up residence in another country to find a job. I think you should be very proud of that. And with your southwestern roots, you would know more about it than most.
Well, Deputy Richard Boyd Barrett, followed by... Sorry, I might go back to you, Deputy. I have to call Deputy Richard Boyd Barrett, Deputy Humphreys, Deputy Matthews. We only have 16 minutes. I'll come back to you, Deputy.
Here, look, the first two questioners did have supplementaries, and so are we not getting supplementaries?
Well, the other deputies also had a number of questions, and I'm, they
so do we.
Well, okay, I'll brief supplementary and then Deputy Boyd Barrett.
Yeah. I
want to give a chance to other deputies.
Very briefly, the point is, Taoiseach, if symphysiotomy survivors had been able over the last 25 years to have a monthly meeting with the Secretary-General of your department, the Secretary-General of the Department of Health, and other powerful institutions of the state, you can be sure that they wouldn't be still trying to get justice up to very recently for the tragedy that they endured and the injustice that was done. And doesn't that really make the point loud and clear? And in relation to Priory Hall, Taoiseach, the point there, of course, was an access point as well, which you deliberately chose to try and avoid. But just to say, Taoiseach, do you think, Taoiseach, that from what was going on in the bubble, do you think there is only one Priory Hall in this state? No. Unfortunately, there are very many. What does that mean? It means that people are living in potential fire traps all over this country. They don't know it and you don't know it. And you could do a huge favour to them and to safety and to avoiding a tragedy in the future by having a national audit on fire safety in every one of the major apartment complexes that were constructed during that period of time. I'll just leave it there because in deference to other deputies.
Well, you see, You see, these are the reflections of government, if you like, Deputy Higgins. I don't think, with respect, and it's a very serious issue in respect of symphysiotomy, that, if government is prepared to listen, you don't need monthly meetings. I'm far more interested in outcomes and action than having to say we have monthly meetings about these things. In fairness, a number of deputies here over a period raised the question of the Magdalens and the women who worked in the Magdalen laundries. And that process was put in train, and their stories were heartbreaking. And there are others out there. It's not a case of having to have monthly meetings about these things that are very serious and very sensitive. If government has the capacity to listen and to act, we can deal with a range of these matters that have been so sensitive to so many people for far too long. Now, I sat in houses the same as many other deputies where house pride is an issue in Ireland, and I've seen husbands and wives tearful in that their mortgage and their money is evidenced in the cracks in the walls and the doors that won't close and the floors that are lifting because of the pyrite situation. This is another issue that we have to deal with. In fact, if I were to tell you the truth and say to you that practically every political carpet I've lifted in the last 2.5 years contains a series of very difficult situations. I could put it in different language, let me tell you now. And sometimes these things have to be isolated and dealt with and finished and completed in people's interests. So when you mention about the Priory Hall scandal, it's very simple. If you had your system of independent clerks of works on these jobs with the authority to say, I'm sorry, what you've built there is not in accordance with the scale requirements here. Knock it. It's like taking out rogue operators in some areas. The word spreads very quickly. You won't get away with it in Ireland. Now, I want to say this. I met with the Construction Industry Federation the other day. There are some very good contractors and builders who are never in NAMA, who want to be able to stand up with a sense of trust that they build what they say they will build, and those who buy, either commercial or residential, can be happy in the knowledge that they're getting a safe building that is in accordance with the proper regulations and proper standards, and that doesn't lead to a situation like Priory Hall, which you and I share. So I'm not one, Deputy Higgins, for saying tick the box, another monthly meeting. I'm all for dealing with these things, make decisions and move on.